Hello, and welcome. This is James, and today I wanted to come in and talk about our peace and our expansion and our growth. Um, Continuing my 100 days of meditation. I didn't do a live yesterday, but I did record a video. I just published it right before I went live. So I have a video coming out about my expansion from yesterday, and it was about perceptions and shifting our perceptions and what I'm doing to shift my own perceptions of how I'm showing up and what I'm doing. And that brings up the question, yesterday, after doing this meditation on perceptions and getting stuck, and I went to this live with Kyle Cease and Aaron Abke, and Kyle Cease's private membership. And there was a great discussion going on about expansion and people expanding versus people staying stuck in their patterns. And Kyle offhandedly said, the people that have to suffer the most have got to be the ones that are having this expanded awareness while staying stuck in their patterns and not doing the work to stay stuck in their patterns. I was like, hey, you're talking about me. And that's why I've struggled and suffered so much over these years, is because I was staying stuck in the patterns. Even though I was having this expanded awareness, I was having this growth, and I was having this new understanding of things coming in, and I was expanding inside, but I was still living by my patterns instead of living by the new awareness. And that created a lot of internal conflict. That created this internal warfare between the ego and the soul that's trying to expand. And whenever I started going into this expanding peace philosophy that I've been talking about and expanding my own peace, part of that came into how do I heal that internal warfare. And so after that, and then having that discussion yesterday, I was like contemplating that today during my meditation. And we had a beautiful meditation this morning with the Absolute Everything Pass from Kyle Cease. Joey House led the meditation. And as we got into that meditation, what was coming up for me, one of the things that was coming up was that discussion that was going on yesterday. And so I was contemplating that, and how do I shift out of those patterns that are still keeping me stuck? Because I have this awareness growing inside of me more and more every day. And since I started this 100-day meditation challenge, it's ramped up that expansion extremely. But at the same time, I'm still stuck in some of those old habitual patterns. And this is part of why we struggle financially. This is why we struggle mentally and emotionally and spiritually, and struggle in our relationships and struggle with health decisions. Is because we're stuck in those habitual patterns. And that's something that's been bugging me a lot, because I'm trying to break free of those patterns myself. And so that's what I meditated on today, and that's what I contemplated, and I felt some of that energy move in my own body today. And that's one of the big things for shifting those patterns, is that meditation. The more I'm doing that meditation, the more I'm shifting out of some of those patterns. I'm still got a long way to go, because I'm only on day 9. So, we'll see. Or day 10. Today was day 10. I think I put day 9 in the title. I'll have to go back and change that. Today was day 10 of our 10 days, 100 days of meditation. Think about it. We're 1%, or we're 10% done. We made it 10% of the way through this meditation challenge. So yay me! I stuck with it for 10 days. That's an improvement. We got to celebrate those small victories along the way throughout our lives. That's one of those pattern shifts that I've made in my own life. When we do recognize that we're making those pattern shifts, celebrate those small wins. We don't have to achieve the goal before we celebrate. We can celebrate the milestones we hit along the way. And that's something that, for me, has been a huge shift in being able to make this consciousness shift. But I'm still growing. I'm still learning every day. And as I'm making this shift in my own experience of things, one of the things that I'm looking at is, what are the relationship patterns that I'm in that are harming me? What are the choices that I'm making that are keeping me stuck in places that I don't really want to be, that are restricting me instead of growing me? What are the choices that I'm making in the people that I'm surrounding myself with that are people that want to say that I have a choice, but anytime I say no to something that doesn't expand me, then it turns into a knockdown, drag out fight. I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be in that energy. I don't want to be in those kind of relationships. And I don't want people to say that they support me and then stab me in the back and then complain whenever I stand up to being stabbed in the back by people that are supposedly supporting me. What keeps me stuck in those kind of patterns and what keeps me stuck in those, a lot of it's our beliefs about who we are. One of the things that was coming up with me in that meditation is you're stuck in that story. That story, the stories we tell are really just the stories of our patterns and why we stay stuck. And the more we get out of the story and we recognize the story is just the ego, the story we tell about why we do the things that we do, the story about why we're stuck is just the ego talking. And the more we can disconnect from that story and disconnect, not ignoring the story, not saying that the story isn't there, but more of detaching ourselves emotionally from our investment in the story, and separating ourselves and recognizing the story for what it is, which is just a story, that it's not real, that it's just a pattern, and it's just really the story is the excuse for the pattern. So every time we're telling a story, we have to look at that story and say, you know, what's the pattern behind the story? Because the stories we tell really are just what we use to excuse the pattern of behavior. And the pattern of behavior is in our subconscious. And it's in our paradigms, it's in our beliefs, and it's in our behaviors. And basically that's what the story is. The story is what's the excuse we're making for staying stuck in a behavior pattern that's toxic and that's no longer serving us. That's really what the stories are. When we're talking about getting out of your story, that's what it's getting out of that story that you're telling that keeps you stuck in a toxic behavior pattern. And the more you can get out of that story, the more you can find your own authenticity. I've been telling myself certain stories for a long time, stories of regret, stories of shame, stories of disempowerment. And as we shift those stories to stories of empowerment and stories of belief and faith and growth, then we can create a new paradigm, create a new reality, create a new way of thinking. Um, and so I've been doing some of these exercises. These daily meditations are helping shift me out of those patterns and out of those stories. And I still have a lot of them. I still have a lot of things that I'm working through and working on in my own life. And by no means perfect. But, like in my business and in the content and the things that I'm doing, what am I doing that's keeping me stuck? What are the limitations that I'm experiencing in what I'm doing and putting myself out here? And why am I putting those limitations on myself? What's limiting my expansion and my growth here as a YouTuber, as a content creator? What's limiting my expansion and my growth as a writer? What's keeping me from sitting down and finishing those books? I've got like 10 books that I've started writing and I haven't finished. I need to finish one. I need to pick one, and that's one of my patterns actually, is coming up with new ideas. Some people talk about how they don't have any idea of what their purpose or what their intention are. I've got so many ideas. It's like, which one is the right one? That's my problem. I've got so many projects I've started, never finished. So many projects that are part of what I'm talking about here and just expanding on those ideas and philosophies. I've been doing this work for over 10 years, just sharing it with other people. Um, but I start and then get distracted, and then I have a new idea, and then a new idea, and a new idea. I have so many ideas coming up. I never know which one to focus on and which one to say, okay, we're going to forget all the other ideas until this one's done. That's been one of my big patterns. And yes, I can say part of the reason for that is the fact that I have ADHD and my ADHD brain wants to constantly jump around like that. But ADHD can be a reason, but not an excuse. And that's the difference. We have to understand that there's a difference between, these are things that are causal, that are reasons, part of the reason why we do things. But it's not an excuse because there's things that I need to do then to control that behavior, to control that cycle, to shift out of that cycle. Mm, and it's possible. I haven't figured out all the details of how to do it yet, but I don't have to know. I just have to know that, you know what, that's a pattern in my life and I want to break that pattern. So, how do I break that pattern? Part of it's changing the story around it. Part of it's changing the story that says that ADHD is why I'm not following through on things. Part of it's changing the story that says that I'm not good enough to finish these things, that I'm not knowledgeable enough to do these things. And I've made a lot of shifts. I had some coach work with me a few months ago that helped me to shift out of that pattern of, I don't know enough, or I need to have some kind of documentation that says that I have the right to teach these things, when there's no documentation that really says I have the right to teach how to change things that I change inside myself. I see people all the time that are like, oh, you have to have this certification. And I get that. I lived by that pattern a long time myself, but I moved out of that pattern. Do you have to have some kind of a certification to show somebody something you've learned that helped yourself? I can show people how to get out of debt. I don't have to have any kind of certification to show people how to create a budget. I don't have to have any kind of certification to show people how to do a debt snowball. I don't have to have any sort of certification to walk people through interrupting a pattern that they're running in their lives. Do I? I mean, I get just, some deep seated trauma stuff. I can see getting some additional training and support in how to handle those kind of traumas and things. So I'm not against educating and learning. I'm not against that at all. I'm against people staying stuck in a pattern that says that I can't help people because I don't have a piece of paper that says I can. So there's one of two sides of that. Either shift the pattern and get out of the idea that you need a piece of paper, or what do you need to do to get that piece of paper? What do you need to do? Start taking action on a plan that's going to get you that certification. I wouldn't want to go to a doctor. I talked about this the other day on, spiritual gatekeeping and stuff. I wouldn't go to a surgeon that's never been to medical school. So, if you want to operate on people, if you want to do surgery on people, yeah, you need to go to medical school and get yourself a license and go through the training and learn how to do it. But you don't want to do that from this place of lack, a limitation of not being in the right place. But one of the things that was coming up today as I was contemplating this is contemplating my own patterns and how I'm showing up, contemplating how I'm doing these videos, contemplating how I'm showing up and staying stuck in patterns that keep me closed off. I realize that I'm stuck in a lot of things in my life that I'm scared what people will think of me if they really knew what was going on inside of me. Even the people that watch my videos, because there's a lot of support that comes to me because of certain situations in my life that I'm contemplating walking away from. Not because I don't care, but because I'm shifting this focus off of taking care of everybody else and into taking care of myself and doing what's right for me. And some that there's fear involved in what are people going to think of me? What are people going to think of what I'm doing? And I have to let go of that fear. I have to let go of that idea that there's something wrong with me. And there's things here, you know. I've started so many projects. I've got the Intentional Prosperity Guide, Conversations on Content. I've got Serenity Journey, and I have all these different things. I have books that I've started on each one of those. I've got projects that I've started and partially done on each one of those. And it's like, which one expands me the most? Which one is the one that is going to expand me the most to work on? And which one is just something I'm doing because somebody told me to, or because I thought I should, or because it was an old way of doing things, it's an old paradigm that I was living in. And I'm still working my way through this. I'm still working my way through these specific things. But I've got several projects, and I got a whole new idea this morning as I was doing this meditation, a whole new plan, a new way of approaching what we're doing right here. But I'm like, I got to finish some of what I've already started before I add something new into the mix. But that's one of those things is, what is this? Is the expansion that's coming through me, because there's only me and there's only so much I can do. I can't do it all. I can't be everywhere doing everything for everybody, even for myself, even for just sharing my own expansion. I can't get it out fast enough. There's not enough hours in the day for me to do all the ideas that I have coming to me constantly. I don't have a lack of ideas. I have so many flooding me that I can't focus on just one. And I know that's part of the pattern. That's one of those patterns that I've been stuck in, and I've got to get out of being stuck in that pattern. And so that's one of the things I'm focusing on right now, getting myself unstuck from that pattern. What's keeping you stuck? What is it in your life that's keeping you stuck? Are you having expansion in your awareness? Are you having expansion in your growth, but you're still stuck in a pattern? Is it a pattern of debt? Is it a pattern of poor financial decisions? Is it a pattern of poor relationships with your family? Is it a pattern of codependency between you and your parents? Is it a pattern of codependency between you and your children? Is it a pattern of codependency between you and your spouse? These are all patterns. Is it a pattern of being stuck in a place of blaming everybody else for your lack in your life? There's so many people I see stuck in lack that are just stuck in a pattern of blame. So many people, part of the thing is, so many people are out there trying to change the world and not working on changing themselves. And it's just habitual patterns that they've developed, and they're not acknowledging that it's their own pattern that they're living out. So as we break free, one of the exercises, one meditation, but one of the things that I'm doing on these patterns is writing the patterns out as I see them. And that's one of the things I do in the journal. Sit down and write about the pattern, and then say, what limitations are this pattern costing me? What is this pattern costing me in my life? What's called a sum cost analysis. What's it costing you emotionally? What's it costing you financially? What's it costing you in people, in connection with people? What's it costing you in being able to achieve your needs and your fulfillment? And then what could you do instead? What would your life be like if you didn't have that pattern? If you didn't have that pattern wasn't an option in your life, what would your life be like? Write that down in the journal. That's just one of the first steps that's going to help you to start shifting out of that pattern. It's something I'm working on myself in these patterns I've been talking about in my own life. It's something I'm working through. And it's shifting the perception of the patterns. It's shifting the attachment to the patterns. And this is what's been coming up through me today. We're continuing our 100 days of meditation. I hope that you're enjoying this series. If so, leave me a comment, like, subscribe, share, and in the description below is a link to the entire playlist where we're going to be sharing all 100 days of meditation insights. So join me, follow along. Hope that you are having a blessed day. We'll see you next time.